just going to put this out there. I wasn't totally convinced by the Kona when it launched in 2017. See, it arrived around the same time as a new i30, and the latter just somehow felt a bit more special than the former, despite them being around the same price across the range. Now, a big person can admit when they're wrong, and clearly I was, as this car accounted for 23% of Hyundai's total sales figures last year. That's a big number, and this new and facelifted model will have the same, if not an even bigger impact on Hyundai's total sales figures. But the question I really want answered is, does this facelifted Kona improve the formula enough to keep it relevant in its crowded segment? Let's go find out. But in order to do that, we're going to have to spend a little bit of time together. In fact, you might even have to put up with a little bit of thunder, as there is a classic Australian summer storm brewing just overhead. But look, we're all busy, I get that. So if you want to jump ahead to the part that interests you the most, then simply check out the time codes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a chapter list below too, so you can find your way through this review. And speaking of YouTube, have you subscribed yet? It's free and the very best way to stay on top of all of our latest videos. Who knows, the next one might just be about your next new car. There's a 4-model Kona lineup, not including the N-Line cars, and the story kicks off with the aptly titled Kona. But rather than drown you in the numbers, we'll just pop them up on the screen here for you. The bad news first then, the entry-level Kona Go has now been replaced by a model simply called Kona, which is about $3,000 more than the outgoing Go. It rides on 16-inch alloy wheels, and while the DRLs are LEDs, the headlights themselves are halogens. Inside you get cloth seats and the smallest 8-inch touchscreen, although it does get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as wireless smartphone charging. The range then steps up to the Active, which gives you a nicer feeling interior, 17-inch alloy wheels, rear parking sensors, privacy glass, and heated and folding mirrors. Next up is the Elite, which builds in some more safety stuff, but we'll get to that in detail in a moment, as well as a major upgrade to the center screen, which is now a 10.25-inch touchscreen with navigation. You also get a better Harman Kardon stereo, climate control, a smart key with remote start, and an acoustic windscreen that's designed to reduce road noise. At the top of the regular Kona tree is the Highlander, which gives you a second 10.25-inch screen in the driver's binnacle, 18-inch alloy wheels, front parking sensors, LED headlights and tail lights, a head-up display, a big glass sunroof, and heated and cooled seats up front, and heating in the window seats in the rear. If your tastes run a little sportier, then the N-Line cars might be right up your street. First, you've got the Kona N-Line, which changes the engine and gearbox. Again, we'll come back to that in a moment, but also adds sportier suspension, heaps of exterior styling changes, 18-inch alloy wheels, and a red trimmed interior treatment designed to feel a little sportier. Last but not least, you have the N-Line Premium. In that, you get the twin screen interior setup, heated and cooled seats up front and seats that are heated in the window seats in the back, a head-up display, and your headlights and tail lights are now LEDs. Oh, and there's a sunroof. Let's start with the newest member of Hyundai's sporty N-Line family, seen here as the Hyundai Kona N-Line Premium. Now, most tellingly, it's got these 3 little slits across the bonnet, part of a redesigned front end that includes a mesh grille. And to hear Hyundai talk about it, it's all about aggression and wide stance. But to be honest, there's only so far you can push a car in this category before it starts to look ridiculous. So while it's probably not as fast and the furious as Hyundai seems to think it is, it's actually no bad thing. In fact, I reckon they got the look pretty much bang on here. Now, elsewhere, you'll find 18-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Continental rubber, and at the back, a giant rear diffuser and twin exhaust pipes. For the rest of the Kona range, the changes aren't quite so extreme. There are alloys across the range now, whether they're 16, 17 or 18 inches, as well as new halogen headlights and LED DRL designs, all of which is designed to make it a little lower, a little wider, and a little sportier. You've got 2 choices here. Most cars get a 2-litre petrol engine paired with a CVT automatic, albeit one that does its very best impression of a torque converter thanks to its 8 fake gears and a manual mode. N-Line cars, however, get a punchier 1.6-litre turbocharged engine, which marries to a 7-speed DCT automatic and also gets all-wheel drive. It's only available with the N-Line cars though. Even the most expensive regular Kona, the Highlander, gets the CVT combo. Cars equipped with the 2-litre engine will sip a claimed 6.2 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle and emit 148 grams per kilometre of CO2. In terms of fuel, that's a saving of about 14% on the outgoing car. If your Kona has a turbocharged engine, however, that number will climb, but not startlingly so, to about 6.9 litres per 100 kilometres and 156 grams a kilometre of CO2. Both fuel tanks are 50 litres and both will sip 91 RON fuel. Now I'm going to do something I don't usually do, and that is talk about a car we're not actually driving. See, I spent most of the morning in the other Hyundai Kona, the one powered by the 2-litre engine with a CVT automatic. So before we get to this car, let's spend a little bit of time talking about that one. So Hyundai makes a very big deal about their CVT transmission not feeling like a CVT transmission. I guess they're trying to break some of the stigma around that gearbox. They've gone so far as building in 8 artificial steps, so it even changes gears like you might expect a torque converter to do, and it's got a manual mode too. And I got to say, a lot of the time it does that job really well. When you're driving through the city, for example, or driving at city speeds, it's a relatively smooth, quiet and painless process. In fact, the only time you really do notice it's a CVT is when you really plant your foot, and then the drone, I'm afraid, is simply inescapable. But it's not the kind of car that you're driving with a lead foot all the time, and a lot of your life in the city, you probably won't even notice. Now, the other thing you'll notice about the 2-litre cars is that the engine isn't overly powerful. It never feels super aggressive, but it does feel quite nicely matched to that car. Again, if you're pottering around at city speeds, which you mostly will be, or even out on the freeway, it sort of keeps things moving along nicely. In fact, the only time it feels a little underpowered is when you really plant your foot, either from a standstill or to overtake, and just takes a moment to sort of gather its thoughts before you really start to climb. And even then, it's more gradual than neck snapping. But I mean, come on, we're in a small SUV. This isn't the end model. I guess it's what you expect. Now, the other thing that Hyundai has made a really big deal about with this car is the amount of sound deadening that's been included, from the acoustic windscreen in some models to the sound deadening that's been added to the doors in all of them. And the idea is just to keep the cabin a little quieter, a little more peaceful, no matter what's happening outside. Now, it's tricky to show you how well that works with all of this stuff happening outside, the rain's really hammering down. But I can say when the skies are clear, it is a quieter and more peaceful space. We're not talking super premium levels of refinement in the cabin, but it's certainly quieter than the vehicle it replaces. But the thing that has impressed me the most, actually, is the way this car drives and handles. Yes, it is a city-focused small SUV, but Hyundai has done quite a number on the ride and handling here, and it does feel very comfortable, very capable when it finds itself on a twisting road. Now, the trade-off for that is that some of the bumps and whatnot can feel a little jarring, especially the massive road imperfections, some of which we went over today. But generally speaking, they've got that balance between sportiness and suppleness about right. And the fact that you can take this car out of the city, stumble across an alpine road or a twisting road, and it will have it still put a smile on your face, I think is a really good thing. Now, let's talk about this car, the sportier of the 2 Kona options. This one, of course, gets the turbocharged 150 kilowatt engine, and it gets a proper 7-speed DCT gearbox, but it does not get flappy paddles. You have to manually shift yourself with the shifter. Now, again, this ties back to the ride and handling balance of this car, but this does feel like a really peachy combination. This engine feels sportier. Again, it's not super aggressive, and it does have that little bit of turbo lag when you first put your foot down, with that moment of kind of nothingness before it really starts to take off. But when it does it in a far more sprightly, perkier, and sportier feeling way than the other vehicle. And the way that marries with the ride and handling balance is really surprising. It is a car that you feel like you do want to find a corner and have a little bit of fun. Now, I'll give you a quick example of what I mean there. I'll plant my foot, there's a moment's hesitation, then it starts to think about it, and away it goes. And when it does it, that's 100, by the way. When it does it in that kind of sprightly, sporty feeling way that does put a smile on your face, and again, does have you wanting to seek out some twisty roads. The other reason you might want to go for a proper drive in this is because this has a totally different suspension tune. It's got a multi-link rear with a sport tune suspension feel, sport tune gearbox. It is the car that's meant to be a little bit more aggressive than the other one. Now, it's not a proper end. That car is coming, and that should be a real firecracker if previous ends are any guide. But in the meantime, this is not a bad stopgap. I guess what it really comes down to in the end is, where do you do most of your driving? If yours is a city life, tootling around town, then that 2-litre engine and the CVT gearbox will do you just fine. But if you do feel a little bit of red mist occasionally, then maybe take this one for a test drive first. For me though, and my inner city life, I'd be very happy with the 2-litre engine. I think if I was after something sportier, I'd want a more dedicated tool for the job, and the 2-litre engine does everything I need to do, and it does it with ease. Welcome to a brand new day and to much better weather. Sorry about the break, guys, but the rain last night just got too ridiculous to carry on. So we hit pause, waited it out, and we're back. Now, what you get in the cabin of your Hyundai Kona depends very much on what you spend on your Hyundai Kona. This one, the top spec N-Line Premium, gets these lovely leather seats that are heated and cooled in the front and heated in the window seats in the back, and you get a glass sunroof and digital aircon controls. But perhaps the coolest thing is this positively German-feeling twin-screen setup with two 10.25-inch screens, one that handles all your driving stuff and one that handles all your navigation and entertainment functions. But you will need to plug your phone in. For reasons that are far too weird to get into, only the base spec cars get wireless Apple CarPlay. In here, you will need a cord. The cheap seats then do without some of the cool stuff. Both the Kona and the Active make do with manual aircon and the smaller 8-inch central screen, where the Elite steps up the tech and the audio. The Highlander pretty much matches the Kona N-Line Premium for interior fit out, and without the sportier interior and N badging, of course. Now, this facelifted Kona is marginally longer than the car it replaces, but doesn't really translate into any extra space here in the back seat. As you can see, a little bit of headroom, a little bit of knee room, and it's not the tightest back seat in the class, but it's not the most spacious either. In fact, it just sits somewhere in the middle. Now, elsewhere back here, there's two ISOFIX attachment points, one in each window seat, and the cup holder count sits at 4, 2 in this pull-down divider and 2 more for up-front passengers. Now, boot space is 374 litres with the rear seats in place. That grows to 1156 litres with them folded flat, and it's marginally more than the car it replaces. It's a pretty good safety story, this one, with every Kona getting 6 airbags, forward collision avoidance, and AEB that recognises cars, pedestrians and cyclists. You also get lane keep assist, lane following assist, smart cruise control, a rear occupant alert and a reversing camera. The Active cars add rear parking sensors, while Elite and N-Line cars gain blind spot collision avoidance assist and rear cross traffic alert, as well as safe exit warning. While the Highlander and N-Line Premium vehicles get front parking sensors, high beam assist and a head-up display. The entire Kona range scored a 5-star NCAP rating when it was tested back in 2017. While all Hyundais are covered by a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is now neither the best nor the worst warranty coverage available, there are some changes to servicing you need to know about. While 2-litre cars require a trip to the service centre every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, cars with a turbocharged engine need servicing every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres. Both are covered by Hyundai's cap price servicing program, though the brand is yet to spill on just what each service will cost. If you're really interested, head over to the carsguide.com.au website, where we'll update this written review accordingly. The Hyundai Kona family has grown up and it's gotten a little sportier too, but how much you love yours will likely depend on how much you spend. For mine, the base cars are a little too basic, and I reckon the sweet spot is probably the Elite trim, which gets the best of the safety and technology stuff, but without breaking the bank. Either way though, Hyundai has done a great job with the road manners, and you get a car that feels right at home in the city, but not out of place on a tight and winding road.